Yeah, they just, it's that we have to have another scene of Zendaya getting angry or Zendaya getting sad or
Yeah, I don't
Zendaya
have a
having
problem
a
with that. I see that
yeah.
you've been like sort of bitching about that quite a bit,
Yeah.
kind of going, the love story's taking priority.
You're wonderful to see. You ought to be in pictures. Oh, what a hit you would
And
be.
went to
You're
see Dune again, as you saw.
Nice.
Yeah,
I
it
saw you
was
still had the same problems with it, pretty much, didn't you?
and it was just reinforced. I think probably because when we came out, Tammy had the same thoughts. She said, I get why spice is it's I get spice is valuable, but I don't know why it's valuable, that it's not really reinforced. Like obviously this is really important, but they never really explain what will happen if the spice doesn't flow. And obviously in the Lynch version, they talk about the Bene Gesserit not being able to have their visions. The Spacing
Mm.
Guild's not going to be able to fold
Well, that's
space.
it.
The
It's the
economy.
navigation guild is like the
Yeah.
big thing that's
Yeah.
missing, isn't it? That they don't
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
mention.
And I thought, the mentats are such a great idea. The whole history of the human machine when the computers took over in generations past. And so
Mm.
they basically banned computers. And so they develop a type of human that serves that purpose. They're human machines, and that's their job. And it's like in the Lynch version, it was really great to watch. I think it was Freddie, who played
Isn't
Thurfer
it?
Hawat. Freddie Jones. Freddie Jones, is it?
I thought it was what's that kid's called? Brad Dourif, wasn't it he?
No,
Wasn't he
he
the
he
computer?
he played the Mentat for the Harkonnens. You're right, but for the Atreides, I think it's Freddie Jones.
Yeah, that sounds right. Because I
Yeah,
know that the guy who played it in part one of the Villeneuve version, they did shoot some scenes for him for part
yeah,
two, and then they just cut them out in the edit because I guess it
yeah.
was
Because,
running long.
they just it's that we have to have another scene of Zendaya getting angry or Zendaya getting sad or
Yeah, I don't
Zendaya
have a
having
problem
a
with that. I see that
yeah,
you've been like sort of bitching about that quite a bit,
yeah,
kind of going, the love story's taking priority. It's like,
yeah.
sure, but I think for certainly for a mainstream audience, that's the access point, you know.
Oh, and I realize they're saying, we could have a deeper story here, but we want to bring young kids into this, so we need to have more Zendaya time. We even end the film with
Yes,
Zendaya.
you do, yeah.
We don't end it with Paul. We don't end it with we end it with Chani. And, Chani in the book is, yes, a major character, but it is one of the lesser major characters. There's whole other stories that are being told. And I mean, obviously, this is a decision they went with and they
Yep.
chose it, but I just realized, I just feel there's so much deep source material, and they kind of went for, oh, let's just romance. They went for, let's have them sit on the sand dune and muse about romance again. And I'm thinking, but where are the mentats? I want to learn
Mm.
about the mentats.
I have confidence that he's holding back stuff deliberately in order to indulge it later. I mean, you obviously know the source material far better than I do. I've read the book once, the first
Mhm.
book, and that's it, once.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm quite happy with what he's chosen to include and to give preference to. I mean, there are
Mhm.
elements to it that I'm like, hey, what about that? It's missing
Yeah.
that element, it's missing that element. But for the most part, I'm pretty happy with whether.
If you don't understand what's missing, then it's hard to be upset about it, because then, okay, because the Zendaya Chalamet love story is fine. I mean, it was interesting enough. It's not bad or badly done or anything like that. But to me, I'm thinking, oh, but there's all this story that's not being told,
Sure.
like the whole Dune story. And part of it too is even not only my familiarity with the novels, at least the first four, which I read, and having watched the Lynch version, gosh, probably at least 20 times at least. And the long versions and the short versions, there's like four different versions. But for years, the board game in the 80s, we played the board game, and it is the most Machiavellian game you'll ever play. Like, there are six factions. There are six unique ways to win. The way the Bene Gesserit player can win is different than the way the spacing navigator person can win, is different than the Atreides can win. And there is subterfuge, and you can buy off people. And there is all of this little dance of geopolitics and backstabbing going on.
Mm,
And that's what I wanted to see more of in Dune. And I just thought, let's put the pretty faces up and give them a lot more screen time. And yeah, it's for me, it's an opportunity lost. And because I'm bitching about it, it makes it sound like I didn't like the movie. It's a grand cinematic masterpiece. I mean, from the score to the production values, everything we said in our previous review. But watching it a second time, I am reminded how much story has not been told.
sure, sure. No, I think that's totally fair. I mean, I tend to err on the side of, let the movie be the movie and the books be the books. And
Yeah.
the last thing I want is a sort of slavishly
Uh, uh,
accurate depiction. But then there are sometimes
yeah.
when I am really invested in the source material, I get it, and it really winds me up, and I'm like, why did you change this and why didn't you do
Yeah.
that? So
Yeah.
I totally understand it from both sides, but I think in broad strokes, where I generally try to land,
Yeah.
without my emotions getting involved, is let them coexist as separate entities.
Yeah.
But I understand how that really can rile people who just love the material.
By and large, I typically agree with that. When you slavishly try to just adapt the novel to a movie, it often fails.
Yeah.
But this isn't just adapting a book to a movie. You're adapting a whole universe. Like there's so much source material, there's so much history. I
Mm,
mean, Star Wars arguably may be bigger, but the nuance and the level of complexity within Dune, I think it'd be hard to find a universe that has a greater sense of complexity and backstory. I mean, Lord of the Rings obviously would have,
mm,
but we're talking that level. And when that doesn't really come through, or you're left wondering why is I was realizing watching this, a lot of us have to fill in the blanks with our knowledge just from the book, because the movie's not going to tell us what the dynamics are between these different factions. We've got to kind of piece it together ourselves. And I thought it again, it's just an opportunity missed in my opinion. But
yeah, I suppose you've got to make tough choices if you've only got a couple of hours and you've got to get from A to B to C or whatever. And it has to be, and you're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on it, and so therefore it has to be accessible. I mean, Lord of
yeah.
the Rings, you pulled up as an example, they cut tons out of that as well.
Mhm.
Um,
Uh,
and arguably
yeah,
that's a better known story,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. No, but I felt, again, having been familiar with that universe, when I first saw Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Rings, I was just blown away. It's still one of the 5 out of 5 films. It's in my top 10.
Yeah.
Um, and I think they really captured, even if they had to choose to, obviously they didn't have Tom Bombadil in it, but that's fine because there was kind of a segue anyhow, even in the book. Um,
Didn't they
but
bring him back and put him in the Hobbit movies? Doesn't he run around with some rabbits, like a chariot pulled
oh,
by
that
rabbits or something? Is that
no,
not him, or is that someone else?
no, yeah, no, that's one of the other wizards,
Yeah.
Radagast or something. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're
he's
right.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
yeah, yeah,
I,
yeah,
I'm unfamiliar. I've read them,
yeah.
but once.
Anyhow, but it was good to catch it again because I tell you that movie Dune 2 needs to be seen in IMAX. The fact that I'm probably gonna never get to see it in IMAX again, unless there'll be some special screening of it sometime in the future.
Hmm.
We just thought, oh, it's playing one day. We're down to one day or one time a day. It's at 2:05, and so we got out to see it as a family.
Yeah. No. I mean, I did the same last week. I knew that when Godzilla opened, which obviously opened here yesterday, it would pretty much knock it off the IMAX
Yeah,
screens, and that would be it. And that really is the way to see it. So yeah, I went
yeah,
out again, and for me, yeah, it kind of, I think because the expectation no longer existed,
yeah,
I knew what was there and what wasn't there. I was able
yeah,
just to kind of sit back and go, okay, this is what it is. Let's
yeah,
appreciate it for what it is, and it
yeah.
all kind of like fell into place a little bit that it that it hadn't done on first viewing. So yeah, I'm glad I made the
You're
effort.
wonderful to see. You ought to be in pictures. Oh, what a hit you would be. Your voice